Video number 33. Sunday today. And it is very sunny here. Blue sky, clouds. In the UK it is cooling down a little bit, thankfully. Oh, there you go. So hot. Anyway, let's talk about the video. So, video number 33. I've put the title of course, cults produce narcissism. That's the main issue. Paranoia, greed and control. And I have quoted 3 John 9 and 10 where it talks about Diotrephes. So let me just read that first. Okay, I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will not welcome us. Two interesting things to think about. Loves to be first and will not welcome us. So when I come, I will call attention to what he is doing. Well, I don't suppose Diotrephes would like that, would he? Spreading malicious nonsense about us. Well, there you go. That tells you a lot about Diotrephes, doesn't it? Not satisfied with that, he even refuses to welcome other believers. Okay, he's mentioned that. He stops those who want to do so and puts them out of the church. There's a lot in those 2 verses. There really is. Narcissism, loves to be first. People who think they're better than everybody else. Now, unfortunately, cults, the dynamics within cults, the social dynamics, produce people who are fighting to be heard from behind the pulpit. The competition, who is going to preach the Sunday service, or will it be the same bloke over and over again? Why does nobody ever else get anything to say? I was raised as a Catholic, and obviously the priests, that's their job. They preach from behind the pulpit. And it would sort of be a different one each Sunday. There was a sort of 4 or 5 of them in rotation that would sort of do the Sunday service. I guess to stop narcissism, and I guess to stop one person's ideas or beliefs becoming dominant and maybe distorting the group. But in a cult, there's so many dynamics. I mean, there's pride. You've got somebody who's charismatic, persuasive, maybe like a sort of salesy type person who can recruit people, and then it's, look what I have done. Look what I have done. And then it all becomes about the person behind the pulpit. I actually listened to a sermon today, and it just confirms this fact. London International Christian Church. What a narcissistic leader. He was attacking the church, insulting the church, and I just thought, what a so-and-so. And he ticks all these boxes, the leader of the London ICC. Spreading malicious nonsense, tick box. All the other groups are lost, and how terrible he was in the past. But he doesn't tell you that he continues to be that way, unrepentantly so. But John had to address the issue. I will call attention to what he is doing. You need to call out the devils. You need to call out the devils, whether they're in religion, whether they're in politics, or the corporate world, or whatever group, sports. You have to call out the narcissists for what they are. And if you don't, then they're not accountable. And if they're not accountable, do you think they're going to get better? Or do you going to think they're going to get worse? Well, they get worse, don't they? These are sort of some of the things to think about. Pride. They think they are chosen by God. And in a cult, they believe God has chosen them above all other churches. And it's the cult is saved and everybody outside of the group is lost. That says a lot. That says a lot. And if somebody is part of a group, even as a normal member, in a group and they're told over and over again that they're saved and people outside of the group are lost, the only reason to interact with people outside of the group is to recruit them. And because everybody is lost outside the group, the only thing to do with your money is to give it to the cult to save the world, because they're all going to hell. And you're so selfish if you don't give your money to save souls. I mean, these dynamics, they play into one another. You've got pride, you've got greed, and then obviously people start talking about these cults. Oh, these cult leaders, they're greedy, they're unaccountable, whatever, they're abusive, and that makes them paranoid. And in their own behaviour, they have demonised the outside world. And what does the outside world do? Demonise the cult, But one of the things you have to realise with cults is most people leave. Even if they don't necessarily know why and how the dynamics and the psychology and all the sort of sociology dynamics in the cult, they know this doesn't seem right. They're all friendly and they want to be my friends, but this isn't right. I remember the sort of first few months I was in a cult, London ICOC. I went on holiday with my dad, skiing, and I came back and the guy who was the leader, in the local group, why did you go on holiday without telling us? Oh, I didn't think I had to. It was a sort of last minute holiday kind of thing. I think my dad had probably figured out there was something wrong and maybe he just wanted to. The thing is, we went on holiday and we didn't even talk about it. And then he didn't do a good job of getting me out of the cult because I was in the cult for 20 years. He died many years ago, unfortunately. But I remember him giving me this sheet of paper about the cult, all controlling, mind control. I read it and I thought, yeah, okay, maybe there's some bad apples in the cult, but that's not my part of the cult. And again, the cult might be bad, but not your local group, kind of thing. And so people stay because, maybe their local leader isn't as bad as the main cult leader. But the longer they're in the group, the worse they get and the more normalised it becomes. So there is paranoia of the outside world. They're out to get us. They're out to take our salvation away. No, they're out to persuade you to leave an abusive group that doesn't represent God. Not that they can prove God exists anyway. So you see these dynamics of paranoia, greed and control. I mean, the greed, in some regard, they want to save the world, but in some regard, they want enough money to protect the group. If they need to lawyer up or, move quickly, we need to move the leaders around, they're going to get arrested. Let's just fly them off to a country without extradition laws. And the bigger the cult is, of course, the more games they can play, like extradition laws, and just moving people around. I mean, sadly, somebody could say, join a cult, and then within a month or two, like if their parents are trying to get them out of the cult or whatever, oh, don't worry, we'll fly you to the other side of the world and you'll be safe there. And if they believe the person is good at recruiting or will make money for the group, then they'll do that. If the person isn't any use to the cult, they'll just let them go away kind of thing. But the cult environment breeds religious pride and arrogance. And what it boils down to is they believe they're chosen by God and they believe, and even if they don't believe that and they just know how to work the con, and the con is pretend God is speaking through you, that's the con, and people will listen, I mean, when I got into watching even religious programming on TV, there's this sort of confidence but arrogance in a lot of these TV preachers where this is what God is telling you. That is the root of the con. The root of the con of cults and religion to a lesser extent is puppeteering or pretending that there's a God and pretending, you have to do what the preacher says, as if the preacher is the conduit. And obviously you can't know what God wants. Even if you read the book, you need somebody else to tell you what the book means. So if somebody assumes God is speaking through them, I've put here, then they can't be corrected because you're telling them they're wrong, and then in their own schizophrenic mind, they believe they're right, and hence they're not accountable. Initially, cults have to be sort of super friendly to get people in, but then the control tightens up. I remember one of my friends who was in the ICOC, he joined a few years before I did, and he said, oh, it was a lot nicer before, before I joined. No, it was nicer in the early days, but it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I've read stories. There was this Brentford Sports Centre where they kicked out half the church in 1994, I think it was. But the problem is, the more people in the group, the more it becomes like an echo chamber, and the more weird a group becomes to the outside, the real world. It's like, for them, it's normal to believe Jesus wasn't actually God, he was an angel, Mormons kind of thing, or Jehovah's Witness. If that's all you know, then the world seems weird, and yet the cult seems weird to the real world. And the more corrupt it can become, they will cover up abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse, whatever type of abuse, to protect the kingdom, and it literally becomes corrupted completely, like Donald Trump. But, you might say to them, I can't believe you just do what your leader tells you to do. And then the person says, no, you don't get it. I'm doing what God wants me to do. And it's like, who wouldn't want to do what God wants them to do? But it's this puppeteering. It's like the ventriloquist and their dummy, and their dummy is God. Oh, God told you, like, what are they, sometimes down the beaches, they can't even remember what they're called, these little puppets that they have. And of course they want money because they fear that their crimes will be exposed, or losing control. And if money gives them more control and more stability, then they want more money. And it's never about, the money is used to save people, because the people recruiting aren't even usually being paid anyway. They're the ones expected to pay and recruit the regular members, where the leaders just tell everybody else what to do. So it becomes a trap, not only for the leaders, but also for the members. So as I've said in previous videos, it's all about control, and by demonising outside people, it becomes more of a trap. Yes, because you're making the outside world an enemy. So how are you meant to be friendly with people? Again, they're only friendly with people in order to recruit them. So it's not real friendship anyway. I hope there's something useful in this video for someone. Anyway, there you go. I do appreciate people's kind comments.